This is Scrapple from the Apple and Honeysuckle Rose, Level 3, Lesson 2. In Level 3, Lesson 1, I talked about tritone substitution in the middle section, really starting with the B section because it was the most straightforward in terms of harmony. Now I'm going to look at some of the ideas in the A section, and I'm going to apply a little bit of tritone substitution there. So we're going to keep the first 4 bars exactly the same, and I'm looking to change bars 5 to 8. And if you've seen lessons in level 2, I talk about some changes here. So it's just really building on that initial idea. So instead of going 1, 6, 2, 5, one of the alternative harmonies I put in for Scrapple was going chord 1, chord 2. Instead of going to chord 5, which is C7, I've literally substituted for F sharp 7 and then go down to chord 1. Then I go to chord 6, which is D7 in my key. Then I take it to the tritone away, which is A flat 7. So you get a little bit more movement. I'll try that in time. And that A flat really pulls nicely to G minor because it's a chromatic note. It's a semitone higher than G minor, but the reason we can theoretically say it works is because it is the tritone of D. I'm going to now improvise on those changes. That was the regular changes. Now I'm going to put the tritone substitution in. Okay, here we go. And I'll do one more version, putting in the tritone substitution one more time. And again, it doesn't sound particularly outside, and it's just an idea really to provide a little bit more harmony to give you ideas. I was looking at the A section and thinking what crazy things I could do. And there are times when you can kind of pull the sequence apart, but you have to be careful because sometimes it starts sounding like another tune. So I looked at the chords 2 and I looked at the chord 5, and I imagined what would happen if I, instead of playing chord 2, I made chord 2 a dominant 7th. So obviously this wouldn't fit the tune because the tune very much has B flats in it. But what about instead of, maybe this is my, I don't know, 4th chorus, and I'm thinking, what can I do to change it a little bit? So I thought about maybe playing a dominant 7th instead of the normal chord 2. So instead of going or a whole bar of 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm now going to put in a dominant 7th instead of the minor chord. It might sound a little bit odd when I do it like that, but I'm just going to try improvising with those chords and see for yourself how it sounds. So if I play the first version, if I use the minor 7ths, and then I'll do another chorus but use dominant 7ths, that might be a better way to get get an opinion of whether it sounds right or wrong. There is no real answer to that. It's really a thing of taste. Okay, here we go. So to my ears it sounded a little bit odd. I was doing the Honeysuckle Rose, which is 2 bars of that. So now I'm going to try maybe Scrapple from the Apple, which is 1 bar of chord 2, 1 bar of chord 5. Let's see how that one sounds. seemed like when there was one bar of chord 2 and then one bar of chord 5, for me it felt a bit more natural. So it's just things to play with, things to move on with if the mood takes you. I talked a little bit about the middle section and putting in some tritone substitutions there. So just to recap, we had chord 1, F7, go to the tritone substitution, going to B flat 7, going down a tone, G7, and then going D flat 7, C7. And I didn't actually look at Scrapple, but you could apply the same kind of ideas to Scrapple. So you could be going A7, and then you could take the tritone substitution, which is E flat, and then go to D7, take that tritone substitution, going to G7, and then you can go down tritone substitution, C7, and then another tritone substitution. There are so many possibilities, and I kind of like started to look at it in real theoretical terms and come up with a few ideas for that middle section. So one of my ideas was to go, was that one. Another one was to go from, so normal 2-5, E minor 7, A7, and then go down a semitone, because the chord is usually D7, so the tritone from D7 is A flat. So I took chord 2 of A flat, which would be E flat minor, to A flat 7. And then I took the normal changes, D minor 7 to G7, and then applied the same process. So it's C7, the tritone is F sharp, so I took chord 2 of F sharp, which is C sharp minor. Now if you listen to it, you'll notice something. How natural it sounds. And that's because it is, and it sounds like descending 2-5s. But that's the reason it works for that. And obviously you can apply the same improvising techniques that you would use on any 2-5. So that's a 2-5 to D. So I would think I probably think of chord tones on E minor and A7, but it's in the chord of D major, in the key of D major. So E flat minor to A flat 7 is in the key of D flat major, and so on. Lots of interesting ideas there. And again, you know, it's whether you can apply those when the bass player is just doing the regular changes. I'd be quite reluctant to do things where you have minor chords in tritone substitution, because they're not so easy to substitute as the dominant sevenths. So with dominant sevenths you can literally kind of get away with it, because as I explained in the previous lesson, a lot of the notes from the tritone substitution, the strong notes, are actually altered notes from the chord. So here's the Scrapple middle 8, using the tritone ideas first of all in my improvisation. So my left hand is the harmony, and it's reflecting that tritone substitution. Now I'm just going to go back to the regular changes. So 2 bars of A7, 2 bars of D7, 2 bars of G7, 2 bars of C7, but I'm going to imply those tritone substitutions. Well, I'm going to try. Let's see how that sounds. I'm going to do that again because I think I can do it better. And part of the process of making it up on the spot improvising is putting yourself under pressure. But obviously, the more you explore stuff, you really need to get to know it. You need to practice it a lot. So I definitely need to practice this a bit more. I'm going to slow it up a little bit. So here we go. And there where I focused on notes from the tritone. Somebody who does this really well is Michael Brecker, and I often refer to him in my videos. But there are plenty more musicians that do explore tritone substitution, but he does it extremely well. And I think the idea is that you keep all the normal phrasing that you would keep on a certain chord, but when you start to play ideas that are very strong and convincing on the tritone substitution, it sounds outside, but it kind of sounds right. Anyway, that's lesson 2, level 3 of Honeysuckle, Rose and Scrapple from the Apple. So hopefully I haven't scrambled your brains with all this tritone talk. I'm going to do one more lesson, and I'm literally going to talk about some phrases in the to play in the middle 8. So join me for the final lesson, level 3, lesson 3.